What is going on, guys? Welcome to episode 3 of the new HotSide on the Onsong Performance Flish and Drifts R33.4. So last night, signed the video off, standing here looking at it, and I actually made a decision and I've changed my mind with how we're going to have the compressor housing orientated. So instead of having it how I originally had it with the outlet facing down with the right angle off the front coming this way, I've decided to actually rotate it and clock it this way. There's still heaps of bonnet room there. We can have our cast elbow off the front there and it can point down. I'm going to relocate the steering res. This bracket, as you can see, is quite corroded and everything from the fire extinguisher anyway, so it can probably get gone or get remade. But this, two things, it keeps this join here way further away from the heat from the manifold, as well as our turbo speed sensor is far further away from any sort of heat from the manifold, and I'll be able to keep the wiring and everything far better protected by having it this way. So having that on there, I'll easily be able to route the charge pipe pretty much straight down, hug this tub as much as possible. I might even cut a little bit more out of this back here. That's like a bit of a crease from a previous accident, obviously. And the charge pipe should be able to come straight down there, come down as like basically right angle and straight down there, as long as it's going to miss the wheel at full lock, and then forward from there and into around into our intercooler. And what that means is there's going to be heaps of room here for us to build our 4-inch intake, which can come sort of around here down like that, and then down through there, and we're going to have our pod filter down under here somewhere where there's a huge big gaping hole in the bar there for a nice cold air intake. So routing it that way just keeps everything further away from the heat. I think it's got to be better for heat management. It's going to look cool too. And with everything like that going down there and this sort of coming around here, we've got all of this space here on the back of this rad support where I can relocate this to, and I can also relocate our, or not relocate, but install our new oil air separator somewhere here as well, which then will sort out our breathing from that. So it's all going to work a lot better doing it that way. A little bit unconventional, but yeah, it's going to be really good. So that's what I've decided to do. That's what's going to happen. So I'll get Rex to weld this on this morning. That way we don't have to worry about the extension like we talked about at the end of the last episode. There's a fair bit of stuff that it cuts out. So a bit of a late start this morning, had heaps of emails and stuff to catch up on. Couldn't keep neglecting those, still got a business to run. But we'll try and get this smashed into today and try and get most of this knocked over today, really, is the plan. Yeah, lot to do, a lot of stuff on. Bit on actually. Yeehaw, looks cool though, look at that. Rightio guys, cracking along. Rex has actually got some time to help us out today. So I got Rex onto making the charge pipe on this side so that we're not sort of in each other's way. So like I talked about, going to be one piece, all welded alley. And we do actually have a bead roller, so it's all going to be bead rolled properly and everything. Very profesh, very nice. So Rex is onto that. He already welded the elbow onto the housing here. Did a wicked job there, looks absolutely awesome. So you can see.
I'm really happy with that one.
Absolutely stomped.
I'm wearing the right shirt today.
Yeah, the Fish and Drift boys. Yeah, boys. Look at that. Sponsored all his work on his car for free, and we still wear his clothing for free in our videos. As you can see, this is going to be a pretty wild setup. I just spent like a good over an hour trying to figure out where the hell I can put this oil air separator. It's a lot harder than it looks to fit in this thing. So that's pretty much what I came up with. It's the best I could come up with the room that we've got. I've only mounted it with one nutsert because the top arm actually travels up through here, so I didn't want to put any nutserts in these other two holes because I'm worried about the arm clashing with them on the inside. So just the one, which is fine because we're not actually going to do a drain on this at the moment. As you can see, it's got a dipstick here, so having the one bolt makes it really easy and quick to get in and out if he does have to drain it out, which being a new setup, trying to test whether we can actually run the full 8 litres in the sump, it's probably going to have to happen a little bit, so I'm not that upset about it. So you're going to have your regular breathers from there into here like we talked about. Then this is going to breathe into our oil air separator. So this is where all that oil was coming out the breather. So hopefully the oil air separator will separate this oil, would be the idea. Or hopefully there's not going to be that much oil because of our boost stock cam plates, but we'll worry about that later. But anyway, so through there into that, and then from this dash 10 out the top of the oil air separator, that's going to breathe back into our intake pipe that goes to the turbo, so it breathes back into the system. So even if it does happen to get oil in here, oil air separator should separate it and it'll breathe back through the intake. If it does happen to overflow, it's just going to breathe the oil back through the engine and burn it. Going to blow heaps of smoke and stuff and whatever, which is obviously a lot better than blowing a heap of smoke out of the engine bay because there's an oil fire. So that's what we're planning on. Not only that, but having that draw through the intake actually does help the engine breathe better. It actually draws a lot of those things out rather than just having it push them out on its own. So Rex actually found these this morning. Do have 4 new studs, new nuts there. So I'll use them for the turbo side. That's what I'll be using when it goes on for the final time. And yeah, another T3 MLSR gasket. So it's all going to be happy bloody days, I tell you. So also started on the water lines. We've got one that comes out of the block there and around and comes up into this side on a right angle, and it's all heat protected, as you can see. And then we've got this one here, which isn't actually hooked up, but there's a 30 degree that comes out of this side of the turbo on that. That's all heat protected as well, and then it goes around the back of the engine, and I just got to terminate the other end when I get to it. But I figured I'll get the turbo actually on and get everything buttoned up because it's going to be a lot easier to do it then. Righto guys, still moving along. So this is the other water line. It came back to where the hard line was, and there's just an AN tool barb there that goes onto the soft line where the hard line went into. So that's the water line which goes back to on this side of the turbo there. So that's all completed. Turbo's installed with our new studs. See that? Oh, maybe not. New studs and everything, gasket. That's all done. We've got our new Raceworks turbo beanie on there, which is awesome. As you can see, speed sensor. So our idea with the intake setup is sort of somewhat what you can see here. This one's going to come sort of high and come down and hug the front as best we can, and down and then a 90 into the intercooler. So then our actual intake pipe is going to go low and come underneath and then come out the bottom there. And that was after quite a bit of dummy fitting and checking a few things. That's what we found would be the best. So I'm just going to wait until this intake pipe's made before I mount the power steering reservoir, so I know how far over I can come, because if I can come a fair way over, that'll be sort of nice with that. So as you can see on the new charge pipe that Rex made on this side, all one piece, yeehaw. We've got our IAT bung back in there, and then on the bottom down there you can see there is an AN6 fitting there, and that is what we're going to use for our IACV. So I'm hoping that there's already something on the manifold that we can utilize to use for this, because I didn't think about the fittings on the manifold to try and make this work. So fingers crossed there's something there that we can hook this up with, because that was the big thing with Matsuri. You know, this thing's still got the mechanical fan. It's running a GK Tech fan on the hub, but we did find that just sitting in line at Matsuri, it was getting hot at idle. And the reason being is because there was no IACV hooked back up when the Motec went in, because I hate the standard RB25 ones with a passion. The only way that we could sort of have the throttle blade open enough so that it would start cold on E85. So the only way that we could idle it down once it got warm was to actually pull a lot of timing out. So obviously retarding the timing that much, you end up with having a lot of your combustion event in the exhaust stroke, which actually brings your EGTs up really high, which does in turn raise your operating temperatures of the engine as well. So hopefully with the IACV, we can adjust the airflow instead, keep the timing reasonable, and having reasonable timing should keep our EGTs lower and in turn keep our operating temperatures at idle lower. So it shouldn't matter so much when you're waiting in line and sitting in line. So that's how we're going to combat that issue. But anyway, we'll try and get it hooked up. But stoked with how this is all going to come along and look. Everything's coming up Millhouse really, and then we're just going to work on getting the dump pipe sorted. So we've got all new T-bolts as well, all brand new T-bolts and everything. Like I said, we actually bought the right size reducer for this side, so we won't have to worry about that anymore. For this charge pipe, we'll put the IAT bung like sensor on this side here, as well as the boost control port, which goes to the MAC valve there, but that keeps all of the extra wiring sort of coming to this area again. Back to the MAC valve, the turbo speed sensor plug, which is here, and then that IAT, and then we're just going to worry about the EMAP up the back there. But it's already sick with the RB26 covers and stuff, but like when all this new fab work's done, it's just going to look so sick. Oh, that's looking pretty serious. Yeehaw. Right, so as you can see, it's ticking along. So in the meantime, I'm going to talk about exactly what we're doing as far as this EMAP setup, because EMAP is something that is, I don't know, it's not readily, there's nothing like on the market that you can readily just buy to have EMAP, really. So there's two things you really got to consider when you're setting up an EMAP sensor, something to measure EMAP. Firstly, exhaust gas is very hot. Secondly, exhaust gas is very dirty. and generally most sensors that are going to measure pressure are not going to like being really dirty. You're going to end up killing sensors. So those are the two main things you got to sort out. Now, when I built one to use for the dyno quite a while ago, I had this great idea. I'd use a copper oil pressure kit, and then I built my own canister filter to use for the setup. So this one just sort of lives with the dyno, and it's worked awesome. We've used it a heap of times. So this is what you end up with. So you get your copper kit, which is just a 1/8 port into what would be a copper, just like an analog oil pressure or a mechanical oil pressure gauge is what you'd normally use that for. And then I actually made this canister out of a bit of steel tube, a 1/8 port at each end. I welded it all together, obviously, and I set it up with a heap of different steel wool and a heap of other stuff that's in there to actually filter out the exhaust gas. And the idea of this, obviously, is that after it comes out of the exhaust, the copper coils actually cool the gas. So by the time it gets to the canister, it's fairly nice and cool, and then the canister filters it, and then from there we actually use this one. We just run that straight into our pressure port on the dyno. So that works awesome, and we've been using that for quite a long time to measure EMAP when we want to or feel the need to when we've got cars on the dyno. But obviously with this one we want to set it up so that it's permanently got it, because there are a lot of cool things we can set up in the Motec based off the exhaust gas pressure, the exhaust manifold pressure. So I'll show you what we've done with this one. It's quite a similar setup. Just let me get through this minefield of crap around Rex so I can show you how this is. All right, get this torch that is flat. Cool beans, awesome. All right, I'll get this light down real quick. Alrighty guys, I'll set the slide up because that torch is already flat. Okay, so we've got the port that we put in the back of the housing, which you've already seen, and we've got our little, these are just, like I said, just a copper pressure, oil pressure kit. I'll show you the packet. You buy them from most auto stores. They're cheap as chips. They cost hardly anything. What was this? $21. So that's just a copper oil gauge kit. That's all it is. And it just comes with your tube, your fittings. You got a male 1/8 on one end, and it goes to a female 1/8 on the other end. Super simple and easy to use. So we set that up in the port. That comes around. We've got all our coils here, which is awesome. And then we've got a female end, and then we've just got a at 1/8 MPT to 3/16 barb there with some vacuum line. And this is the interesting part that I really want to talk to you about. This thing here, wow, nice and shiny, really nice and shiny. So I'll show you what that is. So I think it's 1 KD, like the 3-litre diesel, Prados and Hiluxes and stuff like that, I think. Don't quote me on that. That's just what I'm pretty sure they are. They have a factory manifold pressure sensor filter, and the factory item is plastic, and it is very common for those to crack and cause issues, and they cause a lot of issues with those vehicles. Now, performance diesel intercoolers, or PDI, and I actually just happened to stumble across these because I was actually buying some intercooler stuff off them. I bought an intercooler for an upcoming job, but they make these, and they are a stainless replacement for that part. So what this is just a stainless 3/16 in and out map sensor filter for a Toyota. But for what we want to do here, this is absolutely perfect for this application. So PDI sell these, they're about 70 bucks each. They make them in this orientation with both outlets on the same side, or they also make them with one outlet on each side, which was for a different car as well, a different factory Toyota part. But perfect little filter for what we want to do here. Couldn't ask for a better thing. So I've grabbed a few of those to keep in stock for setting this sort of thing up. So then it goes through that filter and then into our just a link 4-bar map sensor, which is the exact same sensor we're using as the actual manifold pressure. So I've set that up there for now. That's probably pretty much how it'll end up staying set up, but once we've built the dump pipe, I'll actually secure it around the dump pipe and keep it out of the way and stuff. So that's how we're setting up our exhaust manifold pressure. And you know, that's we'll tune to that. It's really handy data to use when you're tuning, particularly when you're trying to push pretty hard with a small exhaust side. But anyway, just nerdy stuff. It's cool little setup. So that's how we set that up. Righto, boys and girls, got our new 1650 Bosch stainless injectors installed. So yeah, these should do a lot better with the actual pre-entered data in the Motec system. I freaking hope they do anyway. And also, just starting now on the cam splash guards from Booststock. So these just replace the 2 singular splash guards at the back. And apparently, I've not tried these yet, but I have heard that they work really well. So apparently they work real good. So hopefully this helps with the initial splashing of oil out into the catch can. Although looking at this setup at the moment, the way this return back to the sump is from this catch can, I'm starting to wonder if maybe most of the oil issues that we're having with it blowing into the catch can are actually coming from the sump. So you might see if it's filling up the oil air separator really quickly when we compete at Benarabi, we might try just disconnecting this and blocking it off for a run and see how much difference that makes. Anyway, you can actually, the oil air separators do have a, I think it's a 1/8 orb on the bottom, some sort of orb fitting on the bottom. So you can set them up with a drain with a tap, or you can actually just set them to drain straight back to the sump. So if it does fill that oil air separator up faster than we would like, and we don't want to have to keep constantly checking it, we will just set up a return to sump. Obviously I don't have the fittings here to do so at the moment though. But anyway, so that's awesome. We've also got some new seals to put in the cam covers. I was expecting them to be in a lot worse condition than they actually are, but Brad's obviously siliconed them up at some points. Obviously they have been leaking at some point, so I'll put new seals on it, as well as I'm pretty sure the new seal kit came with the new rubbers for the top of the bolt heads. These ones, and these are all shot, so that's going to help a great deal. So we'll chuck them on. So Rex has welded up all the intake pipe. He's just outside cleaning that out, getting all swarf and stuff out of it, but it's looking schmick. So it's all looking pretty good. It's all looking great. But yeah, still just a bit of work to go. Look at the other splash guard on. There's our intake pipe. Pretty keen to hear this thing dose. It's going to be pretty wild. That's our intake pipe on there. And we end up with the filter, once this bar's actually up properly, right in the middle of this gaping big hole. Perfect for some nice cold air intake. And you can see there we've got our AN10 port for our breather. So that is breathing from the oil air separator there. So we put it fairly far down on the downhill, so that hopefully if ever does come to a point where that oil air separator is overflowing and it's trying to suck actual oil, it's got to actually draw it up quite a ways, and we're hoping that just the weight of the oil and the fact that it'd have to draw it up so far, it wouldn't actually suck so much oil through the turbo, and a lot of it should just drip down into the filter, is the idea there. So hopefully it works out like that. Hopefully it doesn't actually come to that point, but just trying to sort of take all precautions that we can against whatever could happen. All right, new cover seals. Righto guys, I've got the cam and stuff, cam covers back together. I'm gonna leave the valley cover off for now. For the dyno, just to make sure that it's not leaking oil out of the can covers into the valley. Anyway, and with the bumper on, you can see where our air filter has ended up in this gaping big hole. Yeah. Couldn't ask for more of a cold air intake than that, could you? Big old gaping hole. Big old intake pipe. Oh, look at that. How skits does that look? Also added some extra stickers to the old cooler panel. I reckon it's looking pretty good. Good colours. Yeah, I like it. So you can see where I actually mounted the power steering res as well on its little bracket, but that's pretty solid and nice there. So you should be pretty good, and heaps of room for where that is. So everything's worked out pretty well. That's still in a really silly spot, but hey, there's not really much else. Looking at it now, it depends how this ends up. I probably might have been able to get away with mounting it up here, but the problem is because of the fitting on the top, you actually have to mount it very low. And yeah, that's right, I did try it here actually, and with the bottom on that, it wasn't low enough with the fitting off the top. That was a problem. So yeah, anyway, righto guys. So Rex has got this intake pipe pretty much sorted. Just need to weld it out now and put some ports on it for what we need. That's what the intake actually looks like.
That's the other one, sorry. There's that IAT. Where do you want your
the dash 4? Probably just next to it or something.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, next to it or something like that.
I'll go back. I'll go back.
Yeah, sounds good. I just knocked up this little expansion harness. So this is for the extra sensors. We've got new IAT, our turbo speed. This is for our EMAP. And then I just need to make another little section to fix the MAC valve wiring. And when I was going through my notes to check when I planned all this, what inputs and outputs to use on the ECU. The other thing that I realized that I was planning to, which I'd forgotten, was to actually wire in the vehicle speed sensor to the ECU so that the ECU actually knows how fast the car's going. Definitely a reason for that. I think it was a drivability thing. I think it's because, Brad, we like the lumpy idle, but the TPS doesn't have enough sensitivity to get it off.
When the car was moving, you wanted to get rid of the...
Yeah, I think that's why we wanted to do it. But I'm pretty sure that, yeah, I need to get under there and have a look at the gearbox and see if there's a speed sensor in the gearbox even hooked up. Might not even be able to do it because I didn't plan well enough for it and try and source a sensor. So anyway, it can be done at a later date. Another thing that can be done later. Not that I really want to keep working on the car all year, but I'm not going to stress about it too much, but we'll see anyway. So yeah, I won't bother about getting this into the car now. I'll worry about this tomorrow. You probably noticed it's pretty dark. We decided today, instead of going home and eating and coming back, we were just going to power through for a little bit longer and go and eat late. So I'll worry about doing the inside the car stuff tomorrow. I'll just leave that at that for now. But man, it's coming along. Righto guys, so you can get a good look at how it's ended up with the breathing setup without this intake pipe on there, or the charge pipe I should say. So we got our breathers from the can covers come into our box like it were before. That breathes out into a little air separator, and that breathes back into our intake. Yeah. Righto boys and girls, that's with our last charge pipe installed. Hey, doesn't it mean business now? How much better is that than what it was before? What a setup. So just a dump pipe and a bit more wiring to go. I'm ready to hit the dyno and make some real pepper. So, hey, some serious cold air induction going on. So I don't know if I showed you earlier, but there is that mount there for the intake pipe as well to support it. So yeah, happy days. So then on this side we got an AN4 flare, which is for our boost control. So I will mount that MAC valve to the front of that coil tower. And then the 1/8 port is for our pre-intercooler IAT sensor. So yeah, much better, more serious setup now than it was before. It's more of like a World Time Attack setup now than a dirty old drift setup. But hey, that's the aim of the game. We want to be serious competing, so got to make sure old B-Rad pulls his finger out and doesn't drive like a skirt and does the old onsong proud, eh Brad? Nah, I'm only joking. Brad's got it sorted. We'll get this car sorted for him. Some 500 wheel horse pairs and nice punchy throttle, and I'm sure that he will do very well. Very well. So anyway, that's come out real good. It's getting very late now. It's very time consuming stuff this. Huge thanks to Rex for helping us out today with that fab work. Even with Rex fabbing this stuff all day, I also just didn't stop doing what I was doing between setting up the EMAP and stuff. So my idea of me having this far by this point would have been way off, because I have literally just been going at it. But at least I've got a fair bit of the wiring already pre-done as well. So yeah. Not actually a whole lot to do tomorrow, so fingers crossed we've got a dyno ready for operation.
Well, that's a pretty big day to get.
Yeah, considering what it started as. But in my head, I was like, I'll get this point today. So, glad we had Rex helping, otherwise I would have been sorely upset and going home very sad. So anyway, needless to say, I am absolutely wrapped with how this is coming out. I think Brad is peeing and poo in his pants like we thought he would. Exactly like we thought he would. So I don't know, just like the real car nerd in me with all of the data acquisition, and then just obviously the one-piece alley charge piping, which is just for reliability and ease of service, plus that massive big cold air intake. Just the tuner in me is so sick, so stoked with how this is coming along. It's going to be freaking wicked. Plus the Motec, like, this is going to be a pretty sick drift car. Pretty serious drift car.
Yeah, I like it. I like it's coming together.
We were saying today it's so much fun and it's so sick doing things properly, like doing things the right way. Like one piece charge piping, all dash, like AN4, boost control, fully heat protecting, everything. You know, all of the right sensors in the right places for proper data acquisition with a really good ECU. It's just awesome. It's so much fun. Anyway, it's enough babbling. I'm gonna go home and go to bed. Thank you for watching as always, guys. Pretty keen to see some nums out of this thing. Hopefully our dyno's ready for it when it's ready. And then hopefully it's ready for when Brad's ready. So fingers crossed. We've put in the work. Let's just hope the dyno's ready. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Peace out. See you. Bye.